Hey, I'm not badly behind schedule and have no idea what's going on, and I'm just winging it. That's not entirely my style. I was saying to Dynasty House before we started this. I think having a plan and being organized for 1 week is basically more than most people can ever expect from me. So I feel pretty confident about that. But yeah, we're going to talk week two takeaways, things that might be relevant in Dynasty. Not off the top of our head, we're entirely prepared to talk about week two. Go. And I've got Dynasty Outhouse with me. Forgot to say that. Yeah, I played that twice because I wasn't meant to click it the first time. I am lost this week. Russ, how you doing?
I'm great. I'm glad we
good,
went the drug
good.
dealer method where we gave them the good stuff first, to bring them back in, and
Yeah,
now it's
right.
just like, we're just that gif of like the monkey like bashing on the keyboard and chucking it in the air. Like that's what we are now and from now on.
First taste is free and the only good stuff, right? Yeah. No, my database. I'm tired. Where I get my, and there's no way of me explaining this. Won't bore the crap out of everyone. It's too slow, and so I tried to rebuild it using stuff that would be faster. And that's a chore. And I'm not finished yet, and it's Wednesday, and I got 2 articles due in this podcast, so that's fun. Dynasty week one. What did you notice, Russ? I noticed Derrick Henry being the running back one overall. I'm pretty sure, as far as my very broken data tells me right now. But that's based on one game. I think it might be exaggerated. Him and Aaron Jones both went off this week.
Yep.
And that such is the want with those running backs. With Aaron Jones, it's because the Packers weren't using consistently. It's been that way forever. He's obviously good, but the usage tends to fluctuate a little bit. I still think AJ Dillon is not Jamal Williams. He's not going to force that split this year, so long as health ensues. So I don't know. It's too late to sell AJ Dillon, right? Is the guy everyone thought was the new Jamal Williams. Yeah, I think it's just Aaron Jones season, but I do expect him to not put up 40 points every week. Same with Derrick Henry, it's because he doesn't have that receiving floor, which I know everyone's tired of hearing about, but it's a real thing. But if you can run for
107 passes the last game,
if you can run for 185 yards, you're golden. But I just don't expect that every week, you know.
We just play the Seahawks every week and you'll be fine.
You'll be fine. Also, the Seahawks are a bit of a target defense, apparently. Which is weird. Is it not weird the way defenses flow like that? I wish IDP could get its stuff together. And I want certain teams. Like we always have the Jets, and we always have these crappy teams you can rely on to be crappy. Miami looking like it's not going to bounce up after missing Tua. Hey, there's a thing we should mention: dynasty relevance by Tua. Not what did you expect for the next 2 games? We've seen 7 games of him in the NFL. I really just don't know yet still. But it's getting a little rocky to keep believing on that. But anyway, but with defense, especially looking over the strength of schedule stuff I'm doing for DLF, I mean, it jumps up and down every year. The Seahawks used to be impenetrable, and now they're a pretty easy rush defense, apparently. I was actually trying to look that up.
The only good part of their defense is their front four, except if they're lucky, they have one good run blocker that's in the middle. That's if they're lucky. So they're good on the pass rush. They have no secondary. They have one good linebacker. So yeah, their defense is not good anymore, is really what it comes down to.
Well, it's weird because through 2 games, I've allowed 2 top 12 running back games. So it's looking pretty bad. Like I was saying, it seems to be a target defense, but it's also allowing excessive passing volume, essentially because Russell Wilson is making up for so much that the opposite team is still having to pass on them at a higher rate than they usually would. Because when you got Tyler Lockett putting up the kind of games he's putting up.
Well, they play a bend don't break defense, which I freaking hate. That means that that means they play a soft zone. That's what it is. They let you catch it, then they tackle you right away. They hope to tackle you right away.
Yeah, that seems like a
PPR dream is what that means. That means the slot, the running back, and the tight ends are going to catch all of those balls 5 yards in front of the line of scrimmage. Oh, hey, Jesse.
Me and you both look terrible. I appreciate that, Jesse. Yeah, thanks. You can go. How about you go play some, pretend fakey child games or something while we handle the real manly.
He's got a lot more viewers than we do, man. I don't know if we could really talk about that.
I've never not talked smack about Jesse, and I'm not going to stop now just because he's famous. Okay, just back off me. Right? Also, I was literally. How sad is this? But a tweet I meant to send skipped my mind. I was like, maybe like mid rebuild of this database, I was like, maybe Jesse had it right, and I should just go play other games because data grinding for fantasy football is hard work, man. And wow, Peter, I know I'm pretty impressive. I appreciate it.
We know
you look incredible.
You look terrible. I mean, you don't have to say it twice. You don't need the caps.
I heard terrible, and I don't know what to tell you. Where were we before the famous guy came back in?
I don't
know. Seahawks defense. Yeah, the defense. I don't think because they bend don't break defenses is one of those terms we apply to defenses to explain a particular game and then wonder why it doesn't work again, because it's just a description of what has recently been happening. I really think, and that's why I'm trying to work on with the strength of schedule for DLF, is you have to apply what a defense does to the team they're facing. It's not like they play that particular format and so every tight end's going to go off. If they don't have a tight end that does that, probably not. I know enough Tyler Higbee games can make you think differently, but that's just not my prior right now. Speaking of weird ass things, like San Francisco continues to be a debate. Like, I don't know what's going on with George Kittle. He's still the passing option I want since I tick box on the Deebo Samuels take this offseason. I'll take it.
Now they don't have a running back to run the ball, so now they don't have a choice but to throw it, right? So I mean, Kittle's going to have his target share is going to have to go up.
Did Elijah Mitchell go down? Did I miss that?
He had a shoulder injury. They don't know if it's serious.
It's the 49ers. Does it really, like, the other one will get injured this week? That seems to be what they do.
No, but they all got injured last week. Trey Sermon got a concussion.
Yep.
Elijah Mitchell hurt his shoulder, and Jermichael Hasty, I think, hurt his knee. So yeah, like they don't have a running back.
Jesse,
Kerryon Johnson.
You can keep trying to say nice things and keep going to misquote you to say you're saying terrible things about us. I mean,
quit fantasy because he hates us. I get it.
And this man hates dogs, so like I'm not letting up. Corey, how you doing? But I just don't think that's much different than the 49ers in general.
I mean, 3-1 game is pretty rough.
Yeah, but I mean that seems to be okay. Also, what I'm essentially saying is the value was also always Kittle, and this year it's just been Deebo. Like his week 2 was a little less impressive than week 1, but most weeks are compared to Deebo Samuel's week 1.
Most yards in the first game of a season ever.
I guess dynasty-wise, the major event is Brandon Ayuk's snap share did jump up to like 54%, if memory serves. Like he's back on the field now, finally. But it still didn't mean much. Are you buying or trading for Brandon Ayuk at an astonishing rate? Like I think the reason is this offense favors players like Kittle and Deebo. I think that's how they're built. Ayuk for free, sure, but Ayuk for a first,
no one's giving him for free anymore. I mean, anymore yet, I should say. 2 more games, and maybe they will start getting him away pretty quickly. Just because, I mean, we've seen it in San Francisco. I mean, Dante Pettis wasn't completely talentless. He showed off pretty well at the end of his rookie year. Just they didn't even wait. They drafted Deebo in the second, and Pettis was gone. And then the next year goes around, and they draft Ayuk in the first. And now they go back to Deebo. It's like, I don't know, man. Like, maybe Kyle Shanahan's just not good at this.
I just don't like Kyle Shanahan offenses. I mean, I just don't. I mean, it's continued to be the answer.
I was quoting you, where on your show, you said, look, he's a great offensive mind, but maybe he just doesn't know what he's doing as a coach. And you froze. Really, on your show, you froze?
What's okay. Something's happening. Go. It's fun.
Yeah,
whatever it is, I'm enjoying it. Yeah, you're freezing, I'm freezing.
That matters.
One way or the other.
Oh no, my internet is abundant right now.
Mine is always terrible, so we're probably going to assume that's mine. No, I think I wanted to trade for Deebo Samuel last season, and I think it's a very fair move to trade for Ayuk. He had a great rookie season. It's not going away. That he's capable of doing that. I just don't like this offense. Even while saying Deebo off season, I also would target Kittle if I was targeting anyone in trades. I know it's just a Shanahan thing. It's not an offense that has consistently relevant fantasy players outside of Debo. Every time Debo's healthy and Kittle, that doesn't even work anymore. Just screw Shanahan. Just avoid the offense.
There you go. We need to get the Shanahans out of the NFL.
That's the thing, that they're good for NFL football, like they win games and stuff. It's just fantasy. That's frustrating. That's not important to us. Yeah. I do think I trade for Ayuk for a first plus, less than 2 firsts, sure. If we're putting it in liquid value terms, but outside of that, just if I have Debo, I'm very happy I was able to make that move. Kittle too. I think he's going to bounce back up because it's George Kittle. Having said that, and this isn't at all what we should spend a lot of time on, but it's the type of thing I spend a lot of time thinking of. We typically only get about 2 significantly above average tight ends in a season. If we're lucky, sometimes we get none. Sometimes, like 3 years ago, Travis Kelce was a tight end 1 again, but his fantasy points didn't provide enough value of a replacement that it actually, did much for a squad. Yeah. But typically we get 1, maybe 2. Think Gronk and Graham or Waller and Kelce right now. Yeah, there are arguments go around all off season that there's going to be 5, and that's why tight ends are so valuable. I was like, I took the under on that, but right now my surprise is that the other one seems to be T.J. Hawkinson, not Kittle. I thought Hawkinson would be a top 5, but it wouldn't be, that you're putting him in flex decisions. But he's been good enough on very similar volume vacated target truthers to last year and the year before that. But he's been pretty good on it. He's getting different volume, but it's still the same volume. Relatively
I was all aboard the Hawk train, and dynasty wise,
we're blaming him after game 1 there, Jiffy.
I have a friend who's a 49ers fan, and the entire second game where Jimmy G looked terrible, but I'm just like, he was so good last week. And it's just so much. It's so fun to watch 49ers fans get angry. But yeah, so I had Hawk as my tight end 4, and it was behind Kittle in dynasty value just because I knew that's what it had to be. But Kittle is a weird tight end. He's not many tight ends are yak guys, right? Like, tight ends usually catch the ball, barrel through a guy, and fall down. That's what tight ends do.
Tight ends are all kind of weird, especially the significant ones, like Jimmy Graham versus Rob Gronkowski. You can get a night and day, dichotomy. But at the same time, like Kelce and Waller, Kelce was doing it primarily through volume, and Kelce gets that volume, but he's more traditional, what you're describing as a tight end. And the tight ends that you want tend to be kind of differently. It's like from college, having a bad profile is almost a good thing. Speaking of which, the perfect profile, Kyle Pitts, he bounced up in week 2, had the volume week 1, and week 2, I think he finished as tight end 8 again, as far as I can trust my data, and he's tight end 8 overall in the season now as well.
Does that even at this point? But he looked good. He actually caught the ball this time, and the entire offense just looked better. Apparently, all you got to do is trust Cordarrelle Patterson as your running back, and your offense is great.
That's so exaggerated. I know it's a lot of fun, but I mean, if we're trusting volume,
Mike Davis had all of Mike Davis had the snap share in the first, and their offense was terrible. Cordarrelle Patterson had it in the second. He put up like 25 fantasy points. Ridley put up like 20, and Pitts, I mean, I don't remember how much he scored, but he didn't upset people. So, I mean, that's got to be good, right? In which case, no. I am giving all of the credit to Cordarrelle Patterson.
Fair enough. I would see this as like I would still rather have Mike Davis on my roster. I don't know I'm starting him this week, but I think that's just a 1 week thing. It just seems to be a little exaggerated how much he took over that backfield when you're looking at expected points. But again, I really can't trust my freaking data right now. So far, Mike Davis has got 19.9 expected points per game, and Cordarrelle Patterson is sitting at like 13 expected points per game, which is a volume measurement. But yeah, no, sure. By Cordarrelle Patterson, I guess. Dynasty-wise, you're trying to get rid of those players off your roster in most situations, right?
Oh, yeah. I have Cordarrelle Patterson at the bottom of a couple of my rosters, and I threw out offers to every single competing team.
Like both are just if you need points this week, but neither of them worth keeping.
I don't really ever want to put him in my starting lineup, though. I'm in one redraft. It's a keeper league, but technically you call that redraft. I played him just for the fun of it because I thought it was fun. Like I put him in my lineup this week just because it's a home league. That's what they're there for.
Jesse is clearly spending way too much of his time in non-fantasy. Like trading for Ayuk this offseason was probably the worst decision Dynasty team made. That I mean, like he was up, he was ranked so highly it made him after a 15 points per game season. He was costing 3 firsts, and that seemed like overvalued to me. Like right now, you could get him for less than that. And we're only 2 weeks in. If you got him for less than that, obviously, it was a good move. But the whole conversation I was in was whether paying 3 firsts plus was worth it. And so far, I think he can already get him slightly easier now. And I think now would be a good time to target him. But again, Shanahan's, and I just don't know I want it. There are some things that I don't want to spend the time to put the whole argument together, so I just say no. And it's like Jacksonville wide receivers,
and you don't move on.
Just no. Jacksonville wide receivers, no, thank you. And
I do the same thing with Marvin Jones. I have him on a bunch of my bottom of my rosters, and I
mean, I'll take a bet on someone that's going very low in ADP and trade value that's had a top 24 season before. We've got him. Devontae Parker seems to be the wide receiver 1 on that team. Even though Jalen Waddle is a story, I think that's a dynasty relevant thing. Maybe you have an opinion on. And DJ Chark, like, I don't know, there's not been a good time to sell or trade some. I'm trying to change my vocabulary. It's not easy. Trade some players away. And Jacksonville wide receivers, even when it was Allen Robinson at the time, and he was the good one, seems to have always been a good play. And so,
we've caught on to the idea of garbage time by now. In 2014, 2015, that wasn't really a thing. Like that really came into our vernacular because of Blake Bortles. I mean, let's face it, that's really when that phrase like kicked in high gear. I think we understand that now. I think that's something that we can depend on. Like that's really where we are with Jacksonville right now, right? That's where, why we liked the idea of Hawkinson and Swift and these guys catching a lot of balls, because we knew Detroit is always going to be losing and they're going to have to keep throwing the ball. So I think that is something we are willing to sort of bake into prices at this point. I mean, it's a reason to sell Marvin Jones and Cordarrelle Patterson. It's well past since Jesse left, but bye, Jesse.
Yeah, I'm behind. I want to go back to this Kyle Pitts thing. Like everyone, I don't think he's going to be Kelsey and Waller. I think he's going to be good. It's going to be a couple years before you see us, if we see a season like a difference-making tight end season out of him. Like, think Noah Fant and TJ Hawkinson, right? I mean, you've got the upside and the downside right there. Neither of them feel like they'll ever pay off that value. Kyle Pitts remains a value play in Dynasty. Like everyone with Kyle Pitts is going to be expecting all those value offers to roll in next season. I don't think anyone's ever paying more after actually seeing NFL games. I think that was a kink in the John Bosch and Bob Gilchrist argument for Kyle Pitts. It's like, this is as hypey as players get when they're rookies just before their first season. After that, there's always the reality of points. I don't know it ever gets overhyped from where it was. It was like literally turning down Christian McCaffrey and Tyreek Hill for him in some trades. I think we've seen the height of that. And people know that Mike Davis' unexpected points per game are looking to be. I have no idea. No idea what his unexpected points are, but I appreciate
that's a whole new database you got to put together now.
Peter. Yeah, I got to go build that too, I guess. It's expected points around 19.9. His unexpected points, I guess you could say, is 7.6 because that's how much he's underproducing that volume on average.
His unexpected points is infinity minus that 19.6.
Infinity minus a Cordarrelle Patterson. That's the best I got. Anyone can give us yeah. Okay, you're hilarious, Zach. I get it. The engineer just got to mock data a little bit. Let's not talk about San Francisco or Kyle Pitts anymore.
Yeah, we can move on. This is 2 shows in a row we've talked way too much about San Francisco. I'm ready to move on.
Christian,
wait, okay, go ahead. So
you're good.
This is your show.
No, it's your show now.
No, it's my show now.
I'm giving it you. Now I've completely derailed it. It's all yours. Go.
So Terry McLaurin is quarterback proof. I think that's awesome.
See,
not
I don't
only
know.
did
Wasn't
Terry
he bad the
McLaurin,
first game? Doesn't memory serve that he needed a worse quarterback to be good, like last year?
whatever, man. No,
I'll take what I can get. Yeah.
I mean, he didn't do great the first game, but he also didn't do bad. I think he put up like 10
Oh, no.
fantasy points, and you're not going to be super sad about double digits regardless. But, you know, he crushed. And the thing is, he crushed against Bradbury, who has shut down. It held Sutton to one catch the first week. Sutton goes for 159 yards week 2. I mean, that's a very good secondary, at least in the, well, I can't just say in New York, again, on the Giants. And McLaurin just crushed it. And I think this is a dude that is just really freaking good. And that's my professional vernacular right there.
Speaking of which, I want to do a Pittman and Sutton conversation with you because we're having it during those games, and it's interesting, I think. But before I forget, Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Saquon Barkley are both players I think falling in dynasty estimations right now.
Yes.
Do you have different opinion on it? I would be interested in either, whether I'm competing for this year or next year.
Well, here's the thing. Saquon Barkley, you're going to have to make your decision now because he's going up against the Falcons this week. If you think he's the guy, you go get him now, and hopefully he destroys the Falcons because it's the freaking Falcons. If he does poorly against the Falcons, yeah, he's going to be it's going to be a really hard fight for those guys who are still. He's coming back from injury. I mean, don't get me wrong. He probably shouldn't be 100% yet, but he's Saquon Barkley. You paid the price in a redraft, and if you acquired him this offseason before the season, you still had to pay a lot for him. It's tough to be patient with running backs, but you're going to have to. I do believe in Saquon. I believe in the talent. This offense is looking good enough that Saquon should be able to do better than he has. They have played 2 very good defenses so far. That's why I think this is the week. This is the week that we see.
That's part of the problem. Barkley shouldn't need an offense because he didn't last time he was great. And I think I'm still there with him. His snap share doubled. Everyone loves snaps. You shouldn't, but you do. And so his snap share doubled. So his workload essentially doubled as well, which I guess if you're following the injury narrative fits that well. His expected points like trickled up. He wasn't overly used in a more valuable way. But the idea is Saquon Barkley is a good enough player physically or in terms of talent. I have no idea. I don't watch these things. That he can outproduce whatever they give him. And the fact that his workload ticked up this week is a positive sign. I still think he's that guy. So yeah, I think get him now before he faces the Falcons. But I think the difference is Barkley's a this year play. Like next year, even if he comes back and does really, really well, I don't think he's holding value. I think it's already dropped. I think it's going to stay dropped just because of age, injury, third year.
Well, here's the thing. I think he will be fine. And it's honestly has nothing to do with him. I just, we're on DLF. Oh, by the way, company man. Nice. Today I recorded the DLF trade show. It's funny. I got used to pointing to the top of the screen because that's where the DLF trade show is banner when we record with Addison Hayes. And he ran through the running backs that are running back, like maybe 8 through 15. And they all have heavy knocks on them, whether it's being 4 years older than Saquon, being hurt, or just off to a slow start. Outside of CMC and like probably Dalvin Cook, running back's a little bit of a shit. Oh, and Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor's fine. Like he'll be fine. But everyone else behind that, we hope DeAndre Swift also moves his way up there. But who's going to come after? Who's going to push Saquon Barkley out from further behind those guys? I don't think there's anyone that could really step up.
Nigel Harris, Jonathan Taylor, Javonte Williams, and the running backs they draft next year.
Yeah, but okay. Well, the running backs next year are very different because there's supposed to be some very good ones coming out. But I mean, so far, Javonte just doesn't look like that's going to be a thing. I mean, right now, he would have to do something fantastic. Again, granted, we're only 2 weeks in, but we're also judging Saquon on these 2 weeks. I mean, Javonte hasn't earned any large share of that backfield. He hasn't done anything with the touches that he's had. I completely forgot everyone else you said, so clearly they were just wrong.
Nigel Harris, Jonathan Taylor, and the running backs for next year.
Najee Harris is less than a year younger than Saquon Barkley.
It's not about age, though. It's about years out the gate, right?
And he is on a team. If he is Saquon Barkley, Najee Harris should be doing better. Najee Harris is on a team with a bad offensive line and a bad quarterback, but he's not doing well.
He's getting the volume. Again, that's where I boil it down to who's touching the ball more. I mean, that's what you were saying about Saquon Barkley, why no one else can push him out the way. No one can get that much volume. I mean, Nigel Harris is getting the volume, presumably, when they have good games, much in the same way you were saying about Saquon Barkley. Nigel Harris jumps up as well. Stefan Diggs, Connor, hey, bud. I was going to pretend like I didn't know who he was, and then I decided against it. This is just a chat with all our friends. Let's admit it.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
I don't think there's anything wrong with Stefan Diggs. I know that's not exactly what you're meaning. His expected points is a little low. His production week over week through 1 and 2 is disappointing considering what he put up last year. I think the perhaps lesser talked about, especially since he's still putting up points, is Josh Allen's back to being Josh Allen from 2 years ago. He can't complete passes. And despite Stefan Diggs literally doing acrobatic BS to make him accurate I think we're seeing like that's hard to maintain. Being an exceptional wide receiver every play for every season. Like I think it's going to be fine overall, but I think not that I want back into the Josh Allen is bad train, but he is less accurate. He didn't actually improve his accuracy. I think Stefan Diggs improved it, and he can't maintain that.
Well, this is one of the things that you should have been worried about in the non-point scoring season is Josh Allen what we saw, or is that meteoric rise in his accuracy just an outlier?
It was, I don't think we've ever actually seen that. He did it for a year. I mean, just that's amazing for him, but I really do think Diggs and even, Cole Beasley were a lot of it. Like the year before, I think Cole Beasley and John Brown were doing a lot for him as well because those are pretty good receivers. Stefan Diggs is even better.
Yes.
And to be clear, Stefan Diggs is going to have like wide receiver 1 games. He's going to have wide receiver 5 games. No, I've got no question about the player. It's just going to be less 2021-ish. He can still finish in the top volume.
12. He will absolutely. He'll have the targets. Not as many of them will be catchable.
I mean, so far he's like 100% at 7 targets or more. That's pretty good. He's getting plenty of volume, and he will do amazing on it some games. He's got a harder route. He's got a harder route with it.
Yeah.
What was it? Larry Fitzgerald talking to Antonio Brown, or talking about maybe he should feel pretty grateful they had a better quarterback than most for all of his seasons because Larry Fitzgerald has seen some terrible play in his time. And Stefan Diggs is facing that. It's just what it is. Like I say, I don't want back in the anti-Josh Allen train, but I do think he's still got an accuracy problem. He's still pretty good. And I mean, he's still putting up points because he can run it like no one's business. But the accuracy is back to where it was, which I think tells some of the story. Look at these two. Appreciate it, Detroit. Beastie. Sorry, I just remembered. Yeah, Sutton and Pittman was who I was trying to get back to.
No, first you asked about CEH, and we didn't even talk about that.
2 famous people so far in our chat.
Oh yeah, look at that. We got some guy who's been on Yahoo.
Clapback itself, and as I hear it, Liz Lowell's best friend now, right?
That's right.
J-Mate Check. That's cool. I was actually going to point out, I'm not a company man. I'm actually promoting J-Mate Check's Dynasty Blitz on the DLF on the Dynasty Dummies network. So I'm terrible, I guess, but also
DFPN.
Yeah.
Best and only network in town, baby.
There you go. Because I'm obsessed with J-Mike.
Who isn't? Let's be honest.
We've got competition now. I mean, we can't compete with Liz Lozo, but it's nice to see you, J-Mike. Sutton and Pittman, during the game, I was having a conversation with someone about who was better, and I was like, at this point, from what we know right now, Sutton is the hands down answer because we've seen it in the NFL. I have had a negative evaluation of Pittman's rookie profile, but it's almost null and void at this point. Once you've seen a player excel in the NFL, like that's the default. That right now is a better bet to produce going forward, even without anything else. And during that, while we were having this long conversation about rookie profiles and expectations, and both of them went off for over like 140 yards. So it was like, so they were trying to victory lap on us in fun, in jest, and we were trying to do it back because every time like Pittman would go for 20 yards, Sutton would go for 20 plus a little bit and ended with more yards in the end, as if it matters. Once you get over 100 yards, they're both having pretty good games. But I remain, especially since this is just 1 week and we've seen Sutton do it over a long time, like I think Pittman plus for Sutton trades are available, and I would be really interested in that in Dynasty. Like it seems a major trade at this point. And I would if I have Pittman, I would be targeting, whether I'm trying to win this year or win next, or however you're building, I think trading into players that we should have a higher expectation that it continues from this point, like a Sutton versus a Pittman. I think that's an underrated Dynasty move because it's not an age thing. It's not I hated his rookie profile. It's just play it out 10 times in a row, re-roll the world back to 0 and do it again. I think Sutton continues to be fantasy productive in more out of those 10 outcomes than Pittman, if that makes sense. And so even if Pittman wins, I think you're just getting a slight flaw that you're not getting by trading from like Sutton. Terry McLaurin's, I think, another one, because so far he's been slightly disappointing. He's at an older age. So I think Dynasty players have been a little nervous on him. I just kind of wanted to throw that out. As much as Pittman having a good game makes Zach Reed happy. I'm not going to click on his comment.
I do like Pittman. I wanted Pittman to be a thing this year, but if you're going to make me choose between the two, the answer is easily Sutton to me.
Right. And I think that might be under notice, both coming off such a good game.
Yeah. We've also... I get that Sutton's been in the league an extra year, or is it even 2 at this point? I can't remember anymore. But we've seen it from Sutton. I mean, we haven't seen Sutton stay healthy that long, but we've also seen it with trash quarterbacks. So that's what makes me happy. The fact that we've seen Courtland Sutton just completely dominate other human beings when there's not good people throwing him the ball. And that's absolutely fine. Pittman, he disappeared last year, even though, I mean, yeah, it was the decaying body of Phillip Rivers, but still, it was a decent quarterback, and he did absolutely nothing, even when he was one of the only healthy players on the team. I'm sticking with Sutton pretty easily. I think the long-term floor of both of them are probably pretty similar. So if you are not thinking this year, and you're thinking next year, the year down the road, and you wanted to say, hey, I have Sutton, why don't you give me Pittman in a second, Pittman in a first, whatever you can get out of the guy. Yeah, that's not a terrible move.
I would do that even if I was winning this year. I think Sutton's an easier start for me. I'm just throwing that out there. I'm guessing that's play for now, because that would sound pretty cool. What do I need from Rondell Moore to make him a weekly start? I think he's a top 36 start at this point, so it's all about who else you have on your roster. At wide receiver, at least.
If you are in a league with more than 10 teams and you start at least 10 players, you can start Rondell Moore every week.
Yeah. Unless you have, unless you've got 2 players that are clearly above them.
I mean, assuming you have 3 wide receiver spots, assuming you have flex spots on top of that, you're starting Rondell Moore. If anything, just for that ceiling.
I think outside of that, it's consistency. It's like we were just saying about Sutton and Pittman. I feel better starting Sutton because I've seen him do it for a longer period of time. And the more you see that consistency of role and volume, because I mean, we're looking at week 2. We've literally just experienced what it's like to see a sudden switch in terms of overall performance on a week-to-week basis. And that can happen for a rookie, especially even after a really good game. And so the more games you see where he gets that role, not even those points, but that role, a significant percentage or number of targets, however you want to look at role overall, snap share or routes, which you really shouldn't, but you do. That's what I need to elevate him into the top 24, say. But yeah, you can definitely start him. It just depends who else you have in the roster. I think my thoughts on Rondell Moore right now is I had him ranked wide receiver 5 as a rookie, and I spent all offseason saying that's really too low. I just really like those 4 other. He was in a solid second tier. And Rondell Moore put it to me. It doesn't matter how many times I said that's too low. It was definitely too low. Even if the rest of the season peters out or he doesn't quite meet those heights every week, I think Moore showed he can play with his skill set in the NFL Like, not one game is enough, but I think we're going to see a season where he's going to elevate in value. He's not going to be a what's that fella? He made a term for it because apparently, if you put a term on something, you own an idea. Face planter.
Okay, cool.
A bean counter. He calls rookies that have bad years face planters. So apparently, that's what they are now. I don't think he's going to be that, which means he's always a target from here on out as a young wide receiver.
The volume in the Cardinals offense seems like it will always be there. And what's good to see with being a Seahawks fan, I got to see what it's like to watch wide receivers in an offense where most of the time the quarterback's just sort of running in circles in the behind the line. What's great to see about Rondale Moore is not only did they consistently make plays for him, like they designed plays for Rondale Moore, which is great because sometimes you want to call a play and it actually work like it's supposed to. But also there were multiple times this past game where Kyler was scrambling like a madman behind the line and Rondale Moore was right in front of his face. He was, following the running quarterback. He was the guy in that short yardage and even once in the deep where it was just like, oh crap, I gotta throw the ball, and it's to Rondale Moore. Like, that's why Doug Baldwin was always the best wide receiver to own in Seattle for so long, because the second a play broke down, Baldwin knew where to go. That was the best part of Doug Baldwin. Like, he was so great at being able to read the quarterback and how the defensive players started to play after the play broke down. Because even if you start in man, sooner or later you just sort of break into zone or running around in circles because there's only so long you can cover a guy. So that's why Doug Baldwin was great. That's why I started to really buy into DK Metcalf, because I was worried he would never be that guy. He became that guy. He became the guy that Wilson looked for, and more importantly, he became the guy in Russell Wilson's line of sight. That's the words.
It was always Tyler Lockett, but
oh man,
I'm with you. I would do the reason I mention it. It's something else, right? It's something else. Yeah. I just want to pitch an idea to you though, and I don't want to use your roster play for now because it's going to seem like I'm bad mouthing it, and I'm not. But if I'm having to wonder if I can start rookies weekly, there are scenarios where your roster is weak, because if you're needing to start rookies weekly, can I do it yet? Then it means your starters aren't strong enough, so you're already reaching a little bit into the upside potential of rookies. So just playing that out. If that's the situation I'm in, I'm actually trading Rondale Moore. I think his value only grows from here, but I think you can get Tyler Lockett, who's less consistently week to week. We know to expect that moving forward because sometimes it's going to be DK Metcalf. Plus a first for Rondale Moore. Is that in the range? Like, if I've got Rondale Moore and I'm having to question who my starters are at this point now, then I think I cash out of rookies at that point because there's more expected points from Tyler Lockett. Easier start week to week despite that variance. And I can lock in some liquid capital if my roster's a little shaky as it is. It's not every team, but that's also a way you can go with Rondale Moore, opposite of Elijah Moore right now.
Before you start doing that,
no, yeah.
Before you start doing that, you trade a third for Marvin Jones and don't trade away Rondale Moore.
No, but that's the thing, though.
What you're saying is absolutely correct. You should never have to be relying on rookies. It's like when you go into a rookie draft, you draft for talent, not for your team's needs. Because if you need something from a rookie coming in, you're not competing anyway. So
there are production players, and then these types of wide receivers. Like, I think Rondale Moore will be Tyler Lockett, locked in tier 1 quality player, no matter what the production is for his career, especially after seeing his volume grow so early as a rookie. But if I can get that slightly older, discounted, because everyone thinks people are going to die at 28 years old in fantasy football, plus future value, then I think you're doing both jobs at the same time. And again, it's not every roster. I don't want to trade Rondale Moore away, especially since I think his value is going to grow from here on out. But it's something I think about on certain teams, and so I thought I'd throw it out. And sometimes it's what I miss, because having an excited rookie is so awesome. Like, I couldn't bring myself to trade Dyami Brown, for example, this offseason, despite getting many offers, when normally it would be, advantageous more often than not. Okay, we'll start listening to Zach now.
Before you go to that bottom comment, because it's related to what we were talking about.
Roster decisions are basically Clyde Whistler, Damian Harris, or Rondale Moore.
It depends what you need that week. Like, honestly, if you are playing a team where you just need to score your points and walk away, I play Damian Harris because I think you're in for a solid 12 to 15 to 17 points. But if you're in a team, like you're playing against a team that is just like crushing the rest of your league, you put in Rondale Moore for the ceiling. I don't think
Actually,
CEH or Damian Harris have that too much of a ceiling on them.
actually had to rework my thought process on this in terms of flexing starters between different positions. And this is why I say I need more consistency from Rondale Moore before he gets in it. If you think, and you have to guess or make an estimation, that Rondale Moore finishes as a top 36 wide receiver this week, then you start Rondale Moore.
Yeah.
If you think Damian Harris or Clyde Edwards-Helaire finishes a top 24 running back and you're a little more sure of that, then you lean towards running back because the volume's a little more consistent. Personally, I'm not sure on Rondale Moore just yet, just because top 36 for a rookie would actually be pretty impressive. Despite having seen one game where he can definitely do better than that. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire has like a really good matchup this week. I actually lean Clyde Edwards-Helaire because he's got a slightly larger team, wrong, though not quite as productive as Damian Harris on a better team. But, you know, I've been sucking
running backs that don't catch
passes.
I know.
I've been sucking for Clyde Edwards-Helaire long enough. Like, you could probably just discount me at this point, but I can believe it one more week. Okay.
One more week. You got it this week, Peter.
Okay. But that's the process again. And the reason I like that is because it lets you make your own estimations. If you think Rondale Moore is definitely a top 36 wide receiver, then the odds are you should play Rondale Moore.
Yes. And by the way, that was a freaking fascinating podcast. Your who to play in the flex. Was that the one I listened to a lot of you in a row because I was catching up on stuff. Was that the one where you opened it quoting Kierkegaard?
Like, I apologize.
The only man that would open a fantasy football podcast.
Yeah, I got
quoting Kierkegaard. I am pretty sure.
It's not even like I have a memory or a backlog of quotes. I was reminded of the quote while I was doing research, and I was like, "Oh yeah, that's kind of what I'm talking about." It's just a happenstance. I don't read. I don't even know how to read. Yeah, but that's the one. Yeah, it was interesting because it's true. And no, it was an interesting one to dig into because the line, it's depending on how you calculate certain things, make it much closer or much further away based on top 36 wide receiver versus top 24 running back. I'm still very much on the borderline, but you know, RotoViz is much smarter than me, and they're very much in the wide receiver camp. So what do I know? Damian Harris is a top 8 running back. Well, in that case, I actually have a table out there where you could use all the different position ranks on Twitter to make your flex decisions. But I'm pretty sure top 12 running backs beat top 36 wide receivers at all thresholds. So there you go. I don't think he maintains that top 8 running back status. So do you actually? I tend to be down on Patriots running backs. Do you think he's going to be a top 8 running back overall by the time the season wraps up?
Oh, no. I mean, he's like, discount Derrick Henry, right? He's never going to catch the ball, and he's not going to get that same volume, and he's not going to get the same amount of touchdowns. So he's not like Derrick Henry at all. He'll. I mean, I was looking at him today. I think he got maybe. It was like 23 carries and 3 targets the first game, and then it dropped to like 16 carries and 1 or 2 targets the second game. I think that's what you're going to see. I think you're going to see somewhere between 15 to 20 carries. Hope he scores a touchdown, and that one pass he catches, hope he takes it for more than 2 yards. I don't think that offense is going to be anything impressive this year, so I don't think you can really count on Harris that much right now.
Let me get on real nitpicky as a nerd. Like top 8 running back is a distinctly different category than top 12. And I know it's just 4 players, but bear with me. Like Mike Davis last year was a top 12. But I know, but no one cares about percentages. Mike Davis was a top 12 running back last year. Not a top 8. And that's kind of the difference. You've got a startable, usable player, or you've got a difference-making player. I don't think Harris cracks that top 8, not on 15 to 20 touches. And so I think we should expect somewhat of a drop-off in some weeks. But hey, man,
like Frank Gore was always a top 12.
I would have said the same thing about James Blount in the year where he went off for like 20 touchdowns and actually finished in the top 8. So, I mean, maybe it's James Blount all over again. J-Hope Callaway, I don't have my rebuilding process eked out enough I could say it in a 5-minute segment. Essentially, though, I'm always trying to do both. I'm trying to build and I'm trying to win. And I don't think rebuilding or tearing down a team, I don't really do that. I'm trying to always do both times. Now, Outhouse, on the other hand, is somewhat of an expert. So go.
It's funny. I was listening to the Trade Addicts pod today, which I was not on this week. It was so effing amazing to hear Brian Hart's voice on the Trade Addicts pod again, by the way.
I know, right?
It was amazing. I was like goosebumpy listening to it. It was so wonderful. In a Superflex league, the first thing you want to do is quarterbacks. You want to get that one or at least one quarterback you want to build your team around. And then after that, you go wide receivers, because those are the guys that take time to develop. You know, every quarterback doesn't play that great their rookie year. You know, Joe Burrow will keep getting better. Tua will get better, you know, less confident now. But what you want to do is you at least want to get your core quarterback and core wide receivers down pat fast. Sell every running back on your team. I don't care how young they are. Sell every tight end on your team. I don't care how young they are, because who the hell knows what tight ends are going to be in 5 years, especially because, like Peter said at least once or twice this show and last show, tight ends, you're going to probably get like 2 good tight end seasons a year. You know, 2 good tight ends each season. So you don't want to really like lock yourself into that.
Different. So, but
yeah. So like, okay, cool. If I have Hawkinson, okay, I'm holding on to Hawkinson because that's my dude. I think he's going to be the Kelsey of the future when Kelsey does finally age out. But if I have like Dallas Goedert, Mike Gesicki, I mean, Kyle Pitts, clearly you hold on. Actually, no, if you have Kyle Pitts, you sell that dude because you can build a team off of the value you get for Kyle Pitts. So yes, I get my quarterbacks, I get my wide receivers. The second they start to mature, you go find your running backs, find your tight ends, because those are the guys that season to season, you go grab your Jared Cook and you go grab your Damian Harris, you know, when the season starts, and then you start, that's how your team competes. You don't need to worry about, you know, drafting running backs when you're starting to build a team, because if your team takes 2-3 years to build, which if you have that patience is so much fun to watch. Like my favorite team I've ever built, it took me 3 years to build because that league was freaking awful, but it is so much fun to do and is so fulfilling because I won 2 years in a row and then dropped the league because they all sucked. You know, it's really just I was too good for them. That's what it was. But yeah, you want quarterbacks and wide receivers. You have it absolutely right. You don't need, if it's a super flex league, you don't need 2 quarterbacks right away. I have 2 teams right now. One of them only has Tua. One of them only has Mac Jones. You know, I'm fine until, you know, next year when I start adding one more guy, especially because if you do have those picks, you're going to draft a quarterback somewhere, right? If this is a 1 quarterback league, you do not care about quarterbacks whatsoever. If you, oh man, I didn't even read the second. I currently have.
Yeah, I was going to say, if this is not Wilson, a super flex league, you're in a lot of trouble.
If this is not a super flex league, take whatever you can from those guys. If this is a super flex league, get Wilson and Watson off your team right now. Keep Fields and Lance and turn Wilson and Watson into wide receivers. If it is a 1 quarterback league, pick Fields or Lance, whoever you like more, sell the rest.
Yeah, sure. I hate the idea, but it sounds like a lot of fun, but as I don't rebuild in that sense. So yeah.
Oh, he's saying it is super. Oh, dude, it is super flex.
Yeah, I imagined. He doesn't sound like an idiot,
Wilson
so
and
I'm
Watson,
pretty sure.
Get Wilson and Watson off your team right now.
Just scanning back a little bit here because I skipped over these comments to hit the last one per your words, and then we never got back to them. So, Zach Pascal was on the Broncos. Would you still take Sutton? No. Yes, obviously. We know the answer to that. Yes, we do. J Mike, and then Zach laughed a while. Okay, glad I came back to these. It is Superflex. Yeah, again, Jacob, I don't know why I don't know why he thought you were an idiot, but I could tell from what you were saying that the reason you had so many.
What happens when you assume, Peter?
Make an ass out of yourself, apparently. Hey, don't get me involved here, man. I don't know. Yeah.
It's your show.
You keep saying that.
I will continue to say it because I don't want responsibility for anything.
I deny ownership. KJ Osborne, Donna.
Wait, hold on. Who's this right here? Whose logo avatar is that?
I know, Matt Goering.
I don't see an outhouse anywhere around here.
I can put one on there. Just just instantly, if you like. I like the fact we're fighting over who doesn't have that. It's not my. Okay, I'm gonna start with one. I'm gonna come back to talking about football. I think DK Metcalf's a sell. I think it was a sell this offseason that I missed because I didn't want to anger high T Twitter. And DK Metcalf is. I can admit it. DK Metcalf is so impressive to look at, like in a purely platonic way. Like I was
nothing platonic about it. Jesus Christ, that man.
He's like a first round pick. Like Tyler Lockett has had the volume, always had the volume. I think DK Metcalf struggles, and like Tyler Lockett with any other quarterback, I think he's a sell. I think he's still like a 3 first round pick value in liquid terms, not you should just trade for first. I think most people will be willing to bet because he's going to have big games, and so they're going to trade for those big games. Callum.
I am at Dynasty Outhouse on Twitter. I have the Trade Addicts podcast, by the way, also on the DLF family of podcasts.
I don't know which one of us is on the right.
That's going to be me. I'm pretending it's me.
I'm assuming he's asking for you, not me, but like just to let you all know, I can't invert that in my head. Yeah,
the DLF Trade Show on the YouTube channel also. DK Metcalf. The volume won't be there. The volume will never be there for him to be what we need him to be. This is what we're going to get, the games where he doesn't break long touchdowns. 2 games in a row of, cool, 10, 12 points, 5 catches, 60 yards. I mean, that's what's going to happen when it's Tyler Lockett getting the deep passes, or whenever it just doesn't happen that DK Metcalf makes these grown men look like small children by throwing them around and just running for a touchdown. Their offense isn't good enough for them just to make it to the red zone to throw an easy touchdown to DK Metcalf. That's the problem, so, and especially because it's a new offense that's very different for the first time. It doesn't matter how many offensive coordinators they've gone through. It's always been Pete Carroll's offense. It's always been run, pass, run, pass, run, pass. This is different. They're actually trying to be a better offense. And the problem with that is better offenses spread the ball. Better offenses don't just say, oh God, DK, oh God. Like, it's just like why the Lions always had terrible offense, because it was like, oh God, Megatron, oh God, Megatron, oh God, Megatron. That's all it needed to be. Regardless of how good or bad that team was, their offense was never very good just because that's what their offense was. And that's not what Seattle is going to be. And it's just, I never thought DK Metcalf could have this top 5 dynasty wide receiver value. I tried to sell him, but I could never get. Why sell him for his real value when the world values him at more than that? I'm fine. I know that I'll feel good getting wide receiver 12 numbers out of DK Metcalf, but that doesn't mean I want to sell him for that. If I'm fine with it, I might as well just hold for that price.
You know what, Jacob? You want a Dynasty Outhouse content, so I'm not going to answer this. No. I was actually going to say,
we've talked so much San Francisco between this show and last show that, yeah.
We're not talking about San Francisco a lot. Now, Seahawks are passing 3% less this season, weirdly.
Yes, but it's
54% pass versus 57. No, it's always going to be. It's 2 weeks.
But also because they've actually had the lead, weirdly enough, and because their actual play calling is less boring. Let's just put it that way. I was more eclectic, more like I was trying to come up with a fancy word.
Creative, inventive.
Yeah, too many words came on, so just not as boring. So it might not be the numbers just yet, but still, Wilson's connecting on the deep balls multiple times a game, so we think we're letting Russ cook.
It's okay, Jacob. I was trying to be funny. Buying Ayuk,
he just tries.
That's true. I'm a trier. Okay, that's what my wife says anyway. Yeah. What did we say earlier? I'm buying him if he's priced less than 2 firsts in liquid value. What that looks like in an actual trade. I don't know.
For anyone that's freaking out, you can get Ayuk for a first. I think that's pretty easy.
I would start there. See what whoever has him.
I would not pay more than a first for him right now, unless if I won the championship last year and I think I'm going to do it again, I'll sell my first for anyone I think is going to score me points. Because what's the 112? So if I can do that, I think I'd be fine with that. But I'd have to really believe in Ayuk, and I really would not need something better with that pick. I would not give up too much for Ayuk right now, because it seems like once you're out on Shanahan's out on you, it's hard to come back in. So I don't know if he's coming back. I mean, that's purely anecdotal. I don't have any actual.
He also seems to be terrible at evaluating talent. Like every time he evaluates a player and drafts him, it's just not very good. Like
Joe Williams is going to be a thing, I tell you.
Joe Williams, Dante Pettis. I mean, even fantasy nerds on Twitter could tell him about those ones. Why I'm saying less than 2 firsts is I have no proclivities. I don't mind adding a second. A first and a second for Ayuk, sure. Like anything less than that 2. But yeah, sure. If I can get him for a first, that's probably a better place to start. That's why you're the trade guy. Is John Johnson for sure out this week? More of a Dynasty podcast, but yeah, I believe he is. I think it's at least a several week injury, right?
All I have ever seen is that it is not a serious knee injury. I haven't seen anything of what it actually is. Like I'm scrolling right now, and all I keep seeing is not serious, not serious. He didn't practice. He's on the injury report. I really don't think, I can't imagine he plays this week. And
yeah, I was going to say, not practicing Wednesday for someone this far, and he's been on the team for a while, isn't a big concern.
Correct.
As long as he gets a practice in before, like literally game day. It's a really good game for
he practices Friday. Like Friday's usually a big tell. If a guy who's been in the league 2-3 years doesn't practice Wednesday, Thursday, no big deal. If he doesn't practice Friday, I don't feel super cool about it. But if he does practice Friday, even in a limited fashion, if you need to start him, then I'd be scared, but you could do it.
Yeah, it's kind of my role too. I mean, practice is obviously good, but I think they prefer to rest a player that's already that secure. They choose the health over the practice. But yeah, you'll know before, like Russ says, if he practices Friday, you can probably feel pretty confident. Outside of that, we'd have to ask an injury expert in terms of how much of yourself you can expect after. What kind of it just says knee. That's all I can see.
I haven't been able to find anything specific on it.
Either way, I can tell you, because I was looking at it for my article this week, that this is a pass-heavy, presumably game script based on the offense they're facing this week. I forget who it even is. I'm terrible. Like I say, I'm really far behind this week. They're going up against Cincinnati, who have been allowing like excessive volume and efficiency against the passing game. Ben's got a shoulder that's going to hurt to throw. Did you see that article, by the way?
No.
It sounded more like Ben Roethlisberger. I'm going to do it, but everyone has to be nice to me because of how hard it is for me to do it. That's what that sounded like to me.
That is such a Ben thing to say, yes.
Yeah, it's going to hurt, but I got to throw it anyway. Do you want to let Haskins? No, I'll do it. I just want you to know it's going to hurt. And that's what that sounded like. I'm sure that's his accent, right? I've never actually heard him speak.
I have no idea what he sounds like.
How much weight do you put into future draft classes? 2 years early? I don't trade away picks from 2 years out. I have that as a rule. Like, I'm not trading 2023 picks right now, but I will consider trading 2022 picks, for example. Just because I can trade, I will happily trade draft picks away so easily that I've had to make that rule for myself, because if it all goes wrong, I've found myself bereft. Like I got nothing. So yeah.
Well, the great thing about picks 2 years out is you have 2 years to go get them back. So I'm fine sending them out. Okay, so the question with this is, how much stock do you put into it? It's no draft class is ever what we think it's going to be in September. There's going to be dudes that come out of nowhere. Joe Burrow wasn't really a thing. Clyde Edwards-Helaire wasn't really a thing. And then they're a thing. They're draft year. There's those guys every year. There's guys that we think are going to be great. There was Colin Johnson, Tyler Johnson, Brian Edwards, who all sort of fell. People don't always land where they're supposed to. Some people stay in school, like Nigel Harris and Travis Etienne, where we all thought were coming out the year before. It's tough to really, put that much of a concrete opinion on it. But yeah, you kind of take notice where quarterbacks usually, you'll know, Like, it was really weird.
This
when
was a
Justin
really strong
Herbert's debuted.
class, and it seems to be a pretty strong class with quarterback. I would say there is concrete value they can put on it. It's because we are going to overvalue classes we want to overvalue. Like 2021 was hyped up for so long. Those picks were more expensive before, during, and after. Even now to trade for those players, yet David Montgomery, coming from a bad year, has probably been more productive than those players, and it'll probably amount to being a better fantasy career so far. Good players come from the worst draft classes, like Keenan Allen and DeAndre Hopkins both come from some of the worst wide receiver draft classes, and yet some of the two of the best wide receivers in the NFL we've literally seen for fantasy come from that class. So the concrete things I take away from it is we never really know what the height of that class is going to look like, but we do know that if everyone loves a class, there will be extra value on those picks. So for right now, 2022 picks are probably going to be cheaper than 2023 picks. And that's how I play it. Not what I know of the players, but what I know of fantasy players, if you know what I mean. So I'm more likely to trade for 2023 picks now with the idea of trading into 2022. But, you know, what do I know?
No, what you said is absolutely right. So don't give yourself a shrug and I don't know what I'm talking about. So, you know, you were right. Stop self-doubting.
Being right consistently for this many years hasn't helped me, so I prefer to just live my life at this point. And I honestly don't know. So much goes wrong, but I do think fantasy players are a little more predictable than the NFL. That's essentially what I'm saying. People are going to overvalue 2023 picks. I feel pretty confident saying that now, despite the fact I literally have no idea who's in either class.
Now, it's weird because right now 22 first and 23 firsts have probably the same value when they should not. 22
exactly.
First should be worth more because they're closer. They're a year closer, but right now they are valued pretty much the same. I think you can get the same for a 23 first than you can for a 22 first. Honestly, that's a little wrong.
Yeah. And
take advantage where you can.
2021 operated much the same. We do get, it does seem to be, there's obviously going to be a cycle to it just kind of when talent can declare, but like 2021, that's the most insane value increase I've seen. Like it was literally right now as if we were talking about 2023 and they were already worth twice what that year's picks were worth. It was pretty insane. 2023 isn't that hyped up, but it's still slightly more than 2022. So right now, I also think 2023 picks might be easier to trade for right now, which is why I'm not selling, but I'm buying just because they are 2 years out and in season. That's less likely to have an effect. Whereas by the time we get to this off season, probably going to end up or looking to trade 23 picks for 22 picks. Because again, it might be a worse class, but you can get a DeAndre Hopkins out of a worse class. And I'm okay. If I get a plus on top of that, sure, let's go. Yep. Would you trade Murray for Brady, Lockett in redraft? Kyler Murray, I'm guessing, and Superflex, I'm guessing.
The answer is no. Anyway, I don't care. No.
Yeah, me neither. Tom Brady's just not going to stop. Apparently, I'm going to go with that. I just got offered a trade. Would you expect Mike Davis and Sutton for Clyde Edwards-Helaire, or would be giving CH away? Dynasty? Yeah,
give me Sutton.
Yeah, just give me Sutton. That's painful, but yeah. Hello, gents. Question: Quintus Cephas is an interesting player this year, actually. Is he this year's Travis Fulgham, or does he have a chance of long-term success?
Well, the only difference is we knew who Quintus, or at least I knew who Quintus Cephas was before he started catching the ball. I had no idea who Travis Fulgham was. No, the difference I think is, I think it's going to be a little while before they start building their offense up. I don't think they're going to go and draft Jalen Reagor and Devonta Smith, to completely wipe away Travis Fulgham. And Quintus Cephas, I think, isn't putting up enough points to be Travis Fulgham either. He's catching touchdowns. That's what's kind of inflating his value right now. I like the player of Cephas. I think he is actually pretty good, but I don't think he's going to have that stretch like Fulgham did, because I think that offense is the running backs and Hawk. So I get it. Is he going to be more than a thing for just this year? I'm not sure he's going to be a thing this year, but yeah, I don't think he's getting cut after this season like Travis Fulgham was after last season.
He's not getting cut. I was a little down. I didn't like his rookie profile too much. I thought it was decent, and he's proven to be a fairly decent player in the NFL so far. I think he needs that dearth of talent around him, and I think that'll change this year. I would play him like Travis Fulgham. For now, you don't mind adding him. You're not paying to trade for him, but I would look
You don't have to pay anything if you do.
I would look to get out of him before the end of the season. Long term, I don't see it. Is that I even long term? I think it's more Travis Fulgham than
Steph Diggs, who came at he didn't come out of nowhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
definitely not that. Definitely not Steph Diggs. Definitely not T.Y. Hilton. Definitely not T.Y. Hilton's actually a similar draft round, I think.
Tyreek Hill.
And definitely not
late
that
round
high.
drafted guys that for some reason or another. But yeah, no, like either way, even if he does have longer staying power because he's not going to get cut out of the NFL, but I don't think he's going to be a dude you're starting in your fantasy leagues.
And trade with any value increase. Just get that value out of him. Also, what's a realistic type of trade to put together when trading away CEH? Mike Davis also heard an interesting one, and I like neither side, and that was Clyde Edwards-Helaire and OBJ, and who's the running back in that?
No, it's CEH for OBJ and Myles Gaskin.
Yeah, that was it. So you can package up lower drafted players and an older wide receiver or less sure on who might be producing this year for Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and you can get a similar thing in return. That seemed fairly even to me. Like there's upside, and Odell Beckham we're starting not to believe in anymore. Mike Gaskin's going to put up some points. I still think he's a workhorse there, but there you go. Okay, so apply game theory of how market sees the asset, not as much of what the asset actually is. I mean, that makes it what I said sound smarter than what I am. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of game theory to play the player instead of play the market.
It's poker, play the player. You're not always playing the hand in front of you. You got to play. Each league is its own market, and you play to the market that you're in. We are giving these values of what these players should be worth, but the problem is they might not be worth what we're saying to the guy who has CEH in your league. So what we're saying might not really be helping you. So really what you do is have to figure out, there's the guy, Lou Pasiga, right, who has that notebook idea where he literally keeps notes on every single player in all of his leagues, which God, I can't even dream of having that dedication to that. I tried it for 20
I was going to say, I suck at that because I suck at personal relationships as this,
Well, it's not even personal relationships. It's just
I can't do it. But in general, I can have a concept. As far as game theory goes, I'm increasingly learning. Apparently, I think in game theory, but I have not. I've tried to learn a little bit of it, but I've got no idea if that is or isn't game theory. I imagine it is. A lot of my ideas, people tell me are game theory-ish. I'm stupid.
Sounds fancy.
I didn't know there was a term for it. I've been trying to learn, with rostering your own backup running back or someone else's. The way I think about it turns out to be a kind of a game theory way. I know. J. Mike Check and also Zach Reed on the Dynasty Dummies podcast, the DFPM Network, which apparently is just, this is a promote the Dynasty Dummies podcast. They did a whole podcast on it. John was talking to John Bosch as well, and they've been talking a lot about game theory, which is mostly all I know about it. What's fair value to get back for Noah Fant in Dynasty, non-tight end premium?
Anything. I think Fant's going to be a thing as long as Judy's out. When Judy comes back, I think he's going to fall down a little bit. But also, a not dependable tight end and non-tight end premium, I don't care. Give me a second, I'll be happy.
Yeah, I kind of divide tight ends into, Gronk, Kelsey, one of those guys who have a slightly high probability of having a difference-making season and do it consistently, actually. Kittle as well. And then those that are the Jason Wittens. They finish top 12, top 5 every year, and it's fine. It doesn't have that difference-making, but it's fine. And Noah Fant seems to be in that category. In fact, one of the signifiers of that is you break out in the top 5 by your second season at tight end, you seem to be in that group. Interestingly enough, both Waller and Kelsey break that rule, though. So Tight ends have no rules, man. Just trade them
Tight
if
ends
they're ever
have no
really
rules,
valuable.
is what it comes down to. Especially when nowadays everyone's changing to tight end.
Right.
I mean, that's why Waller breaks all every rule possible.
The minute they
And
have
Kelsey,
value,
who got hurt his rookie year, so that throws everything in the wash. So it's
if you're not sure you have that type of tight end, then you probably don't.
Then you
trade
don't.
them. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what that comes down to. If you can get a second for Fant, be happy about it.
For sure. I'd try for higher, I guess, but again, I'm not the trade guy.
Oh, but yeah, if you can get 3 first, then yeah, take 3 first, but it's just not going to happen.
Dude, would that be your first offer? Like, will you give me a second for Fant?
If I
As
wanted
someone
to
who
get
sucked
something
the
done,
trades, I have no idea.
Yeah, probably. I would probably,
Okay.
if I'm just trying to get rid of Fant and I want some picks, I would honestly just throw Fant for a second to anyone who had a second. And I'm sure someone would say yes to that.
Fair enough. I've only got 2 last hastily written notes here. KJ Osborne, like I'm out on Minnesota providing 3 viable fantasy wide receivers.
So much fun, though.
It is a lot of fun. I love seeing it happen, but
I mean, KJ Osborne's the more realistic story, right? Like he didn't do much his rookie year, and he developed, and now it's his second year. So Justin Jefferson, he's nothing now. This is the Adam Thielen KJ Osborne show, baby.
Justin Jefferson's dead.
Okay.
No,
this seems to happen at the beginning of every year. The past 2 years that I can think of, the first few games, the Vikings came out throwing. This, like, we freaked out about Dalvin Cook like a year, for the first 2 weeks last year also, because I think the first game Cousins threw the ball like 40 times, and we're just like, wait, how? Wait, what? Like, it broke our brains. And I think we're there now too, because they're not throwing the ball that much, but they're throwing it pretty well. And with their defense being new and not great, they're gonna have to more. Especially if you're not playing teams where you can just give the ball to Dalvin and he can run for 80-yard touchdowns, which isn't going to happen a lot. So they're going to have to throw the ball. And it seems like without having a tight end, it's going to be those 3 wide receivers. And honestly, they hurt each other's value a little bit being at 3 wide receivers, because they all seem to be able to play in the same areas of the field, where at least when you had Kyle Rudolph, he was at least just taking 5 steps and turning around. I mean, that's the best he could do. Now it's 3 guys who can run the same routes, because they're relatively similar wide receivers, enough that they might eat into each other a little bit.
And the other one was, I have nothing to add on that. I would play him the same way we said about Cephas if I'm going to play him some way. It's fun to watch, though. New Orleans. Yes. Great week 1, terrible week 2. Any dynasty takeaways here? Outside of Michael Thomas, is probably still a decent player to send trade offers on, where people forget he could be back this year, and also next year he'll still be good. And hopefully,
but he'll be like
Jameis Winston.
He'll be dead.
Exactly. That doesn't scare me. Either Jameis Winston won't be as terrible as we saw week 2, or they'll hopefully find another quarterback.
Truth has to be in the middle, right? Like,
right,
5 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. The truth has to be somewhere in the middle, at least game to game.
Well, that's
right?
the thing about Jameis Winston.
One and all of the other.
The truth is, it's one or the other, though. that's the truth of Jameis Winston, isn't it?
See, yeah, but Michael Thomas will make a difference being out there. They don't have anyone to throw the ball to. I mean, we got excited for Marcus Callaway for getting that. Yeah, that doesn't matter because he's still not that great. Michael Thomas is a difference maker. And just to make, you laughed when I said he'll be 29 and he'll be dead. Michael Thomas doesn't beat people with speed, so age doesn't matter. Like, it's why I'll never be worried about Keenan Allen's age. It doesn't matter. It has nothing to do with speed. Hey, with thoughts on this trade, Jonathan Taylor for Chase and Devonta Smith.
Hey, is Julio Jones and Mike Evans 2 players that win at speed still good, by the way? Because they're that age and they just put up a lot of points. Anyway, I don't know about that.
They're great. Julio's a great route runner and gigantic, and Evans is just gigantic.
Speed. And so does Evans. I'm just not sure on that. Athleticism always seems to be misapplied as a narrative it doesn't work. Like, they're just good players. Sometimes it doesn't continue, but we have no way of predicting that. I don't think the athleticism thing helps.
Well, that's why we drop everyone into one bucket and use an average as an answer for when we start to dislike people. And it's never right.
Here's the thing. JT has to be in such a high tier for running back, especially the way it's going this year. I think the answer is meant to be JT.
Yes.
But Devontae Smith is doing really well as a rookie. Like I think he's dragging that whole team up with himself and his 23 BMI. And Jamar Chase is not disappointing for the first time. Well, the second time. The other one was Amari Cooper. But Dynasty wide receiver 1 is not disappointing at all. So that's rough. The answer is JT, but I don't know if my team really sucks.
Well, if this okay, hold on. If this is connected to your original question, if this is your rebuild team where you have JT and you're trading for Chase and Devonta Smith, that's decent value. Yeah, I'll take that all day because those are two very young, very good wide receivers.
Yeah, so, I think you get JT a little cheaper than that because both of those are so attractive right now as young wide receivers doing well in Dynasty, especially if it's PPR. I think you could just switch one of them out for a first and get JT. And like you said, the other way around.
I would feel great about that. I mean,
yeah.
It depends what side Jacob's on. If Jacob has Jonathan Taylor and he's looking to sell him, I would be fine selling him for Chase and Smith easily. If I'm trying to buy Jonathan Taylor, yes, do what he said and try and take out Devonta Smith.
Be willing to go there, but don't start there.
Yes, Chase carries more value, and then you see where negotiations take you. Yes, I'm usually at it's funny because Peter asked before, are you just offering a second for fans and, see how it goes? Yes, at that level, 100%. This level, you don't throw your best offer out right away. You let there be some wiggle room.
Hey, I'm learning.
Yes, trading away JT for getting those wide receivers, I would definitely do that. I'd be good with that. You're gonna hear people say that you didn't get enough back, but ignore them. You absolutely did.
It doesn't matter what you do. Actually,
yeah, people.
And no one has ever made a good trade unless it's so unbalanced that it's ridiculous. That's my experience asking about trades anyway. But yeah, I'd do that. Hawkinson or Gronk, PPR, this week or in general? In general, Hawkinson. Just dynasty perspective. This week, I don't think I even have him up.
Well, the answer to me is always going to be Hawk because it's more of a target share in yards and reliability. Gronk has been scoring 2 touchdowns every game, and that's not going to happen every single game. Maybe now, if you're talking this week with Antonio Brown being out, maybe that helps a little bit, but I still stick with the dependability of those targets with Hawkinson. I can't tell if you're frozen or just reading something on your screen. No, you're frozen. Awesome. Okay. There you go.
Sorry. I was just sitting here trying to figure out what guard I'd angered. Yeah, by and large, I think you're right. Hawkinson's either in the right decision on a start-sit basis because he's got, again, the volume. Who's going to touch the ball more? True, every touch Gronk gets is probably going to be a long-distance touchdown, but I would still bet on the touches. So, yeah, I think Hawkinson's the right answer in most situations.
I think so, too. That's why
cool.
I said it.
I didn't hear you say it. I read the question and everything went black.
That you couldn't hear what I was saying.
Everything went black the minute I read the question. Literally, that's not even. I've turned off everything else, so hopefully that stops that from happening. But also leaves me bereft from questions to have. Any other players that you think might be, a little under-noticed dynasty-wise?
Oh, man, now I got to scroll real fast to see if there's anything we're talking about. Marvin Jones. Go get Marvin Jones on all your teams you want to score points because he's the only reliable receiver on the Jaguars. I love me Jalen Waddle. I think he's going to be a beast.
I think reliable Jaguars receiver is an oxymoron, so I'm out. But I think he's the best one.
But at the price you have to pay for Marvin Jones.
Sure.
Oh, man, I really like how crazy is it that it looks like Henry Ruggs might be a thing because Derek Carr is finally throwing deep balls. It's so weird.
Again, I don't expect it to continue, but it's nice to see for Henry Ruggs.
Yeah, it's cool, right? It's not something you'd expect, really.
Those late round first picks finally pay off. Trade now. This is not a team that wants to run through wide receiver. And doesn't, in fact. I'm trying to think.
Okay, I want to take. I just scrolled through all the games and there's nothing else I really want to talk about. All I want to do is say, hell yeah, #Team Clemson, big wide receiver Mike Williams is a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Williams is a thing.
Yeah, he's like a top 12 wide receiver. In fact, top 8 to talk about that difference-making threshold. I think it
I
changed.
love that we found some real coach speak, because Lombardi came out and said, look, in my offense, the X is the thing, and Mike Williams is that X, and he is hurting Keenan Allen's volume. I mean, that's what's happening.
Right now, yeah.
I mean, I don't know if it's going to be sustainable, but that's where we are right now, I guess.
I've done enough raining on your parade. Yeah, that's fine. Good for Mike
yes,
Evans. I mean,
thank you, Peter, for once in your life just letting
came
me
into the league after suffering an injury that was literally meant to take him out of, walking, let alone playing professional sports. Was doing really well in his college career up to that point and didn't quite show the same player when he returned that 1 year before going to the NFL, which is what took me out on him. I mean, when he's healthy, he's been decent. I was talking to, well, you were on that podcast. Daddy's Home was saying that on the field, in terms of his actual play, he's a little disappointing at the catch point and after the catch point. But I mean, like you say, he's getting the volume so far. I do expect it to regress back to Keenan Allen. I'm sorry. I
mean, don't get me wrong. I love Keenan, and so no, I won't be sad about it, but this is making me happy. I'll take it while it lasts.
Regress was the wrong word there, by the way. That's a different thing.
I let it slide. I'm just going to.
No, that's fine. I mean, enjoy it. I mean, why not? It's a week-to-week game, right? And 2 weeks in, Mike Williams has been winning stuff. I know it's early, but Super Bowl prediction: what teams will make it and who wins? It seems like very NFL type question.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay, I don't want it to be the Bucs again.
Fair enough. It's probably going to be the Bucs.
It's probably going to be the Bucs.
I forget the way the breakdowns happened. Can Arizona get there without going through the Bucs? I don't think they can they?
No, they're both NFC, so they have to meet in the championship.
Yeah, because I think Kyler Murray is going to tear it up. Well, he's already pretty much he's been tearing this league apart.
The problem is the NFC West is back to being very good. So I think we might see 3 playoff teams out of there. And I would love to see a conference championship of the Rams and the Cardinals, because those 2 teams are just, if Arizona's defense clicks, they're just going to both be so good, and I'm going to be such a sad Seahawks fan because those teams are going to be so much fun to watch.
I can't think if I had to ask that question, but I was wondering, like, the Rams, they're very well managed. They're a good football team, exceptionally good football team. But then you've got players, you've got Arizona and Kansas City, and they kind of operate, they're good football teams, but they operate by having this exceptional upside because of their quarterbacks, essentially, and good receiving options for them to feed. Like, do you feel like, almost want to say the Rams is more stable, but I kind of always bet on the volatility of those exceptional types of.
Well, with 1 and out kind of playoffs that the NFL has, you kind of have to.
I guess the edge would lean on Rams, wouldn't it?
Yeah. The Rams defense is just really freaking good right now. So but you can't you can't keep Kyler Murray in check and 3 times, and they would have to play him 3 times in a year. I mean, at least once he's gonna come out and just beat you, and hopefully that would happen in the playoffs.
I guess it's like betting on volume. That makes more sense, but like, just as a fan, I love players that the logic doesn't make sense for, and when you've got Kyler Murray and Patrick Mahomes, I don't know how, but sometimes they just make it happen, and that's the exciting stuff for me. But yeah, I guess you'd bet Rams. And Matt Stafford certainly seems to be doing a better job at executing that offense, that's for sure. Bob Gilchrist, who was here not long ago, I think it was him who asked him
apparently you didn't turn off enough stuff in your house to get your internet running. I think the Ravens, it would be nice to see them get there. I don't think they could win, but it would be nice to see them get there. I mean, the AFC isn't great right now. I mean, you're used to just having the Patriots and the Broncos, Manning and Brady. I mean, there you are. What's up, man?
Yeah, I thought about changing my shirt just to make it really weird when I came back on, but
you would definitely be caught mid.
Are you still in week 3? I mean, yeah. Sorry, what were you saying?
I don't even remember anymore.
It was about Tom Brady. I can tell you that.
Looking to trade Chenault. Who should I target, and should I be selling lowish? No, don't sell low. They'll get better, and Chenault's that guy.
I would happily panic trade Laviska Shenault or Marvin Jones or anyone else on that offense, to be honest with you. You know, that team has yet to score a rushing touchdown this year. And in fact, you have to go back to week 14 of last season since they last scored a rushing touchdown. It's just
their
weird,
team's going
right?
to be very, very bad, but it doesn't matter. Like, once...
No, I think... Overall, you're right. I mean, Chenault's going to be easier to get higher value, even this offseason. Even if this maintains, someone's going to be more interested in training for Chenault this offseason.
I think we can start the show at 10 instead of 9:30 because all these questions start coming in at 10 o'clock.
Okay. We can change it. Or you can change it since you're in charge of it.
Nope, not my show. Would you hold or look to move Trey Sermon in Dynasty? I moved him right away. The second he was active for week 2, I started moving him. Yeah, no, I was never a believer. I got one shared as like a just in case, and then I moved that anyway.
I didn't draft him anywhere. I found him to be a slightly average running back on 2 different teams, and I wasn't that excited for a late first round pick. But I did buy like the description of his talent on the field. I bought into it in the sense I thought he would be the starter. So healthy scratch week 1 was enough for me to, I would sell. No, that doesn't happen.
It's funny. Like I said before, I have a friend that's a Niners fan. He asked me how he should feel about Trey Sermon, and then I said,
angry.
How do you feel about a guy who's like AJ Dillon but not as good? He's like, oh, I'm like, sorry, it's. But there are people that really do like Sermon. It's not my thing. To be like Sermon, you have to be Derrick Henry. There's no other way around it.
I think his skill set is a little more balanced, but we're literally talking about a guy who won't earn the touches unless like maybe 3 running backs get injured in a single week. And even then it's probably not. Hasty, is he still active? Can they sign someone? It's looking like that type of.
If Sermon ended up in like New England, you'd probably like him more because they're that old school power eye running team when they want to be, as opposed to running a complicated system like Kyle Shanahan's. I'd never liked the idea of him there. It doesn't fit. So if you can get something for Sermon, I would move him.
I feel the pain. What I recommend is go finding like a Rashad Penny fan from back in the day. I'm one, and we could like commiserate. Nothing's good here. It's not. He's keeping him back to really bring him out in week 4. He's just clearly had to accept it myself, and now can talk about how, man, he even had first round draft capital. You can say, but he looked electric on the tape, and the truth is, it's just not going to happen. I seriously, the more I play Dynasty or try to articulate how I play Dynasty into words, the more it translates into act strongly as soon as possible, and that's a situation where you can act strongly here and be pretty confident you're right. I mean, Trey Sermon's a person in the NFL. He could do something.
Is there anything in stats that is predictive in the NFL?
Yeah, it's all about predictive of what? What stats have the most predictive value once a player is in the NFL? Running back, I like looking at expected points. I've got it in the free database I've got pinned. But you can also look at like yards per team attempt. If you don't want to do that, you just look at their overall yards divided by the team's attempt so far. And that gives you a pretty good idea of what their role is and how good they are on it, especially as you get more weeks built into that. But that's it. You're looking at volume. Who's getting the most volume? That's the most predictive. With wide receiver, it's the same thing, but we've got stats that work slightly better. Whopper is an air yards metric. That's really good for wide receivers. I also like yards per team attempt for wide receiver as well. Honestly, pardon me. Points per game does you 80% of what the best stats are going to do. Predictiveness. Points per game is fairly predictive week over week. You just look for who's scoring a lot of touchdowns and expect it to be a little too high. You can do a mental jiggling instead of having an expected points calculation. So points per game overall is probably the single best stat, but look at it with suspicion, especially when you're looking at how many touchdowns they scored. That's always going to overrate how good they are. Isn't it past Russ's bedtime anyways, trying to acquire Stafford in a pick value? Where are you offering? That's definitely a you question.
Okay, well, you're not getting him for a first anymore. I think you're in 2 first territory for Stafford because, like you said before, a first and a second, who cares, right? It's not 2 firsts.
Yeah.
So I think we're at 2 firsts for Stafford, just because like this dude's probably still only 26 years old, even though he's been in the league for 17 years, and he's now on the best team he's ever been on. I really think, honestly, to get a conversation started, you need to send 2 firsts worth of value.
I don't know why you would either. Like the QBs that you want right now is now Patrick Mahomes, and we also have Kyler Murray. Like that's a new addition. Like those are the ones that are going to create a drastically different outcome than the Derek Carr and Baker Mayfield. Stafford's going to finish higher than them. I just don't think he's going to finish higher than them enough on a points per game basis that it's really going to, like, it's not worth 2 firsts, even though his value is, like Russ says, probably around there. I just don't get it.
I think, see, the thing is, he has a great floor.
Like, oh yeah, that's fair.
And that's what you would be paying for. Like right now, Daniel Jones is the QB7, and he has 8-9 more points than but then Stafford does, which in 2 games is a pretty decent difference. 4.5 points per game, but we know what Daniel Jones's floor is. Jared Goff is actually above Matt Stafford right now. Now, I can't tell you who the Rams played the first 2 weeks of the year because my brain is asleep already, but also know that they play Tampa Bay next week. So it's not going to be, maybe wait till after this week and go for a first and a second. But back to why would you want to? I think there's safety there, and I guess the ceiling can be there if their offense clicks the way. Like, remember what that offense was with Jared Goff when they were good? Like, I think that's what we still have in our heads. Like, that offense can be that with a good quarterback.
Yeah. I think you're right on the floor. I think dynasty-wise, the value of having that type of quarterback is the floor, which I do underrate slightly sometimes because I spend so much time thinking about upside. Or I'm naturally inclined, maybe. You have to use less roster spots. In Superflex, it's nice having that floor on your QB2 spot. If you have any version of negative points, like Scott Fishbowl, I'm in a cap league with John Bosch runs it, and like quarterback, I figured out 3 years in because I haven't been paying enough attention that the quarterback scoring is so sensitive that my normal quarterback strategy doesn't work, and so I got to fix that all of a sudden. But Jared Goff has actually been doing fine. So, I mean,
I didn't actually think Stafford was 26. I was using hyperbole to prove a point, Bob. Come on,
just ignore him. He's fine. Now, I really do think the only 2 quarterbacks right now that are worth target. But again, like you said, depends on your floor.
Also, you're not getting them for 2 firsts either. So, I mean,
no, too late for that. If it was ever possible, I don't know.
I mean, before Mahomes started a game, it was possible, but that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Anything else?
He's right. Russ needs to go to bed. Wrap this shit up.
Just another couple of hours, you think? I mean, do you want to start at 10? Because we can say that now. Next week I can roll it out at 10, but like just so everyone knows.
Seems like that's what the crowd wants, because that's when they show up. That is true. That's just why I said it.
I would say the comments became thicker and fast. Although, starting at 9:30, we got Jesse. We got a famous guy in here. Not to mention J. Mike. Very true. He was in here a little before that. For right now,
we'll go for quality or quantity.
We're still starting at 9:30, just so that Russ can't say it's my bedtime.
All of you that will listen to us equally.
Just so Russ doesn't have an excuse to leave any earlier into a show. We'll just say we'll start at 9:30, and then it's your bedtime. I want as much of you as I can get. Appreciate it, though, guys. Thanks for checking it out. We'll see you again next week. Hopefully a little more organized. It's my fault. Sorry about that. And, maybe I'll get a haircut or something just to make myself look somewhat. I won't. But I really appreciate it. See you again next week. Bye. I know. Again, all my show sheet says at this point is, I guess we're done here. That's still the only.
Look over there.